Year Zero, the Killing Fields, the Cambodian Genocide. This event goes by many names, yes, but regardless of the label, we can feel the burden of the failed responsibilities of the communist rulers of the past and the people's rights, responsibilities, and lives that paid the price. The start of 1975 in Cambodia wasn't just a terrible war, it was a terrible lifestyle. Though before this, in 1953, Cambodia finally finished war with the French Revolution to win their independence. After many years of non-independence in the area, Cambodians' fierce leader, 22-year-old King Norodom Sihanouk, returned from exile to lead the new country. Unfortunately, they hit rock bottom. The hope of the people in the area had been crushed as they were believing that they would go back to normal, but no. They had scrambled through different governments and different political systems. People were unhappy with the sudden changes and different leaders, but they had to figure out quickly who would be right for each of the roles. After this victory, Cambodia had a short period of peace, which had been very valuable to them because of their recent conflicts. People look at this time period as the Golden Age because of it being so calm. People thrived with this time because Cambodia seemed to be getting back to a healthy, stable area, right? But no. After this, in 1970, Sihanouk is overthrown by Prime Minister Lon Nol. Lon Nol wants to expand as he is a fight-first general who wants to make his army bigger any chance he gets. He ends up sending the army to fight North Vietnamese. This decision, although it may not have been the best one, as over the next few years, the very patched up and injured Cambodian army slowly loses territory. Their effort and heroics in battle slowly come to an end. Prime Minister Lon Nol's decision in war had bit back at him as finally he had been overthrown by the Khmer Rouge and their leader Pol Pot as they took control of the area. During the revolution. In 1975, the group Khmer Rouge and their powerful leader Pol Pot invaded Cambodia's capital, Phnom Penh, hoping for changes to be made. The brutally violent group rushed into the country and forced the innocent people to do harsh labor. Many were worked to death or died of starvation. Children were separated from their families and innocent citizens were thrown in prison called S-21. In this prison, people were put in inhumane conditions and treated like animals. The rights of the Cambodian people were being stripped from them and there was nothing that they could do about it. Pol Pot, whose real name was Saloth Sar, was a ruthless leader who wanted total control of Cambodia. Pol Pot was a previously bright student who began to study politics in France. By the 1950s, Pol Pot was involved in several communist groups and had a love for Chairman Mao. When Pol Pot returned home in 1953, he had support from rural Cambodians, Chinese, and the North Vietnamese. This gave him the momentum he needed to become the leader of the communist group known as the Khmer Rouge. In 1970, a civil war broke out between the Khmer Rouge and Lon Nol's army because of conflicts in government. The Khmer Rouge were victorious in this war. This event is what led to Cambodia's capital being captured in 1975. When Pol Pot captured Phnom Penh, this was referred to as Year Zero and a new beginning. In the first few days of taking power, thousands of Cambodia's military personnel were killed. Pol Pot got the name Brother Number One after proving his ability to rule the communist group. Pol Pot was totally responsible for keeping his army in check as he was a dictator and an absolute ruler. The Khmer Rouge were taught nothing but brutality. They had a saying, "It is better to kill 10 friends than to leave one enemy alive." Many of the soldiers in this group were teenagers that were no older than 15 years of age. The members of the Khmer Rouge were responsible for controlling the people of Cambodia and keeping power over everyone else. The citizens in this country were forced to do harsh labor in an area known as the Killing Fields. The Killing Fields were invented for the purpose of committing murder with simple instruments and devices. The area was called this because people died while doing this harsh labor and their bodies were buried on this same land. Labor brigades were split into groups based on age and gender. Some of the work included digging irrigation canals, planting rice, or fertilizing fields. The citizens were forced against their will to do these tasks and did not have a choice if they wanted to survive. Some members of the Khmer Rouge even died in these fields due to members of the communist group turning on each other. Because of poor economic management, starvation and disease were very common because of the shortages in food and medicine. The desired targets for the Khmer Rouge to kill were known as the impure people. This included any type of intellect or minority group. Intellect intellectuals included people like doctors, lawyers, teachers, people who spoke multiple languages, or even those who wore glasses. Minority groups that were targeted were the Chinese, Vietnamese, and the Muslim Jan. The Khmer Rouge also had a strong dislike and hatred toward pregnant women. Pol Pot and his group viewed these groups of people as threats and thought it was better to take them out. Those who believed in Pol Pot's movement were known as Pure. It came to an end in 1979 when Cambodia was invaded by Vietnam and the Khmer Rouge was overtaken. The communist group's rule was finally over, but millions of people were still wiped out. Finally, in 1991, they were gone. Cambodia was under the hold of the corrupt and horrific communists no more. No oppression because there were no oppressors. No death because there were no killers. And Pol Pot passed away not long thereafter at the age of 72 in the year 1998. As of 1991, the UN Transitional Authority and new factions of Cambodia took control of this nation now post-war, and Prince Sihanouk had retaken his place in government as head of state. A position like this gave Sihanouk the responsibility of making various decisions to better his country, one of which being that he openly denounced the Khmer Rouge for their murderous ways and put as many leaders as possible from his regime on trial for their actions. So this is great. No more brutality, and the persecutors are getting what they deserve. It seems as if there should be a celebration of peace and freedom, right? No, far from it in fact. This country is still recovering to this day from the horrors of the past. During multiple of the Khmer Rouge's conflicts, they laid millions of mines across farmland and open space, many of which are undiscovered and waiting for an unsuspecting person even to this day. These caused thousands of disabilities and deaths for the people of this area and even some of their livestock. It would be great if as soon as this horrific communist party was gone, life returned to normal. That's just not the case. People were still in poverty and struggled to regain enough to eat, let alone provide for each other. Maybe people had gained their right to lead their own lives and make their own choices in their new freedoms. But in responsibilities, they gained the needs of basic survival of not only themselves, but their children and future generations of Cambodia to come. The odds may seem insurmountable, but the Cambodian people are strong and would press on. Pastor Sinai Phuoc, who lived during this time, is a living example of this. He and his family, along with the help of others, are giving homes to orphaned and abandoned children across the country and gladly shared his testimonial with many others. This heroic and loving endeavor is just one of its kind that are taking place in a now revitalizing Cambodia. With efforts as such, Cambodia is making remarkable strides out of poverty into what is now possibly better than ever before the recession from France colonization. Along with these new organizations aiding the people of Cambodia, the government is contributing a lot as well. To start, they have implemented both education on the time before and during the Khmer Rouge. This is because they want the new generation, both born at the end of the war and even post-genocide, to understand life before the genocide, so that they do not feel that the culture produced by Pol Pot is what was to be followed. The government also teaches on the event itself to ensure that ideas and actions like this do not occur in the future. This new government has also added alternative ways to educate both the youth and foreign population through museums and institutions. One specifically located in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, is the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. This museum houses the photos and archives taken by the Khmer Rouge about the lives of their detainees that most likely became executed. These images are put on display to show visitors the gravity of time and why it must be prevented forever. Great initiatives such as these are massive in meeting the new responsibilities held by both the government and the generations before to aid, educate, and elevate the new generation, not only to escape this tragedy, but to rise far above any expectations.